welcome to the Star Parent Group Easter Cooking Challenge. And I call it a challenge because I have two things for you to do. They're not as healthy as some of the other dishes I've done in the past, but they're tastier. And man, listen, I've actually tried this recipe out twice already. On both occasions I had 15 hot cross buns and I thought, where am I going to get rid of these? But clear to God, they went. I couldn't believe how quick they went, and hopefully it'll be the same for yourself. Now, just before we start cooking, let me explain what you're going to need. And I have here all the ingredients, but I also have all the equipment that you're going to have. You're going to need an oven. You're going to get that on at 200 degrees. You want your kitchen to be fairly warm while you're doing that, and that's because you want to activate the yeast, which will give you the rise in your hot cross buns. And I have a couple of teaspoons, I have a fork, I have a wooden spoon for stirring, I have 3 tablespoons, I have here a cup, and I'll try to use cup measurements whenever I can, and I have a couple of bowls here, and I also have a cooling rack. You'll need a cooling rack because when they come out you want to let them dry, get rid of all that steam. You need a small saucepan, you will do. If you want, you'll also have the measurements in grams and milliliters and so on. It's up to you. You can use weighing scales and a measuring jug, but I try to make it nice and simple because I know when I'm in the kitchen, it's very hard sometimes to find a weighing scales or a measuring jug, and also that the batteries are working in those. All right, I have here 650 grams of strong flour, and it's this strong flour here. Reason why it's strong, because it's high in gluten, and that means then that it's more elastic than the flour that you would actually use for your cakes, because you want the flour and cakes to break away, where you want this to have a little bit of a elastic bit in it. So that goes into my main bowl. I know I'm wasting a bowl here, but here we go. And into this, I'm going to add my spices. And I have here sweet cinnamon. Now, you can use normal cinnamon if you want, or if you can't get hold of this. I got these in Tesco's, so I'm sure you have. And we put 2 teaspoons of this into our mix. I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of mixed spice. Okay, and that goes in like so. Okay, into this I'm going to put 5 tablespoons, that's the big spoon, of caster sugar. Now, I will need more sugar in a moment, but let me just show you that. Okay, so there's that mix. I also add my salt as well. Oh, it's starting to smell like hot cross buns already. Oh, by the way, before I go any further, you'd better take off any rings or any watches or any bracelets that you have and put those away, because it does get messy. Fold your sleeves up, and if the kids are around, get them to help you. Make sure they wash their hands though. Okay, so there we have that first mix. In here I have a 1/4 cup of warm water. Warm, I put my hand in it, it's neither hot nor cold. It just feels, it's actually body temperature is this, all right? So, and to that, I'm going to add my yeast. It's dried yeast, and it's a 7-gram pack. And with the fork, I'm just going to give it a whisk up like so. And to that, I'm going to add 1 level tablespoonful of caster sugar. So we have 5 in there, and we have 1 in there. And we'll give that a good stir. Now hopefully, if that starts to work, that will start to froth very shortly. Yeast needs food, and it needs moisture and warmth to grow. And I have here the moisture and the water, the sugar and the warmth. And I said the warmth, it just needs to be body temperature. So you won't really feel hot or cold. Okay. Into this mixture, the dry mixture, and we'll come back to that now, I'm going to add my butter. And how much butter? It says 60 grams of butter. How much is 60 grams? Well, there's a tablespoonful, and it's about 2 humped tablespoonfuls of butter. And you put it in small pieces like that and stick it in there. Just make sure you do get it into the bowl. And you mix it. Now, I don't know about you, but I love hot cross buns. I love them when they're being toasted and lashing the butter on it. I shouldn't though. Okay, I'm going to rub that in. Now, there's not much fat in there, but you need to rub it in. Make sure it's mixed all the way through. You know the story about hot cross buns, don't you? Years and years ago, long before you and I were born, many years ago, the idea was that after Pancake Tuesday, Shrove Tuesday, Ash Wednesday, you would actually have a plain bun, no dairy in it, no nothing, no fruit or anything, and you had that right up to Palm Sunday. And then it was only after Palm Sunday that you were allowed to have fruit in your buns and dairy in your buns. They do say that it was the English who came up with the idea of putting a cross on the buns. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'd say it was an Irish monk, wouldn't you? But the idea is that it's very representative of the feast of Easter. The cross represents Christ dying on the cross. And the spices were actually supposed to be the spices that they used to preserve the body. And there is a myth that the holiest of hot cross buns are made on Good Friday. And the story goes that hot cross buns made on Good Friday never go mouldy. They might go dry, but they never go mouldy. And as such, they would be kept somewhere in the house, kept dry, and then if anybody was ill throughout the year, you gave them part of hot cross bun, soaked in milk, and that was supposed to help them to make them better. Okay, so there's my flour mixture with my spices, my sugar, and my butter. Here, and if you want to have a look, you can actually see that that's starting to froth slightly, and the smell, it smells a little bit like beer. I also have a half, or just under a half a cup of milk. All right. So, what I do is I make a well in the middle. You're now going to find out why I've taken my watch off and my ring off. I add my milk and I add my yeast mixture. Make sure you get all the yeast in there. Once you've added your milk and your yeast, you add an egg. Now, as you're mixing this, it might be a bit too wet, it might be a bit too dry. Well, what you have to do is you've got to get your hand in and you've got to start mixing it. And you're going to make a dough. Now, sometimes I've seen chefs when they've made this, what they do is they will start, oh, it's a bit too dry, I'll add more water to it, or it's a bit too wet, I'm going to add some flour. My advice to you would be to hold back. Hold back and just keep kneading it, getting all that flour in. And if you're going to add some water or milk, just dampen your hands. Don't pour any in. I've mixed it as far as I can in the bowl. Now this is where the fun starts. You're going to have to knead this. And and you'll just knead it hard. Lovely smell of this. Now, I haven't added any more water or added any more flour to this. It is a bit sticky, but as you knead it, you'll find that it'll start to come together. And you know when it's done because it leaves your fingers. The Greeks, way back in the 6th century, had buns that they actually made with crosses around Easter as well. There you go, that's coming up. And I don't know whether you can see, the chopping board is nearly clean. And my hands are nearly clean as well. And that's because it started to absorb all that moisture. It's good workout, this. I wish though I kept my Fitbit on. Made up some of the steps I haven't done today. And if you're getting tired, say to one of the kids, hey, would you like to have a go at this? This is good fun, this. And it's nice and spongy and elastic. It's a good dough. And it's enriched. And the smell, smells good already. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back in the bowl. I'm going to cover it with a tea towel. And I'm going to keep it somewhere warm for approximately 1 hour. Okay, I'm just going to wash my hands. Right, so that's my dough is going to rest now and dull in size for about approximately an hour. I have 3/4 of a cup of fruit here, and to that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of mixed spice. And mix that in. I'm also then going to cover this just to the surface with water and stick it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes. Okay, that's been in the microwave for 1.5 minutes. I'm going to drain off the water that was in there and just leave the fruit now. And I'll show you what I'll do with that in a second. But for now, I'm going to add 2 tablespoonfuls of peel to that. Now if you have glacé cherries or anything like that, raisins, you name it, you can throw it in. Not too much fruit, because remember, where it sometimes goes wrong for people is that they put so much fruit in, the dough can't rise. Okay, so that's the fruit mixed in like so. I'll just leave that now, and that will go in later on. With this here, that's the juice of the fruit, I'm going to add 2 tablespoonfuls of apricot jam. I'm going to boil this up to a nice smooth syrup. And this here will be used to finish off the buns, glaze the buns, because the idea of a lovely hot cross bun is, it's that smell, it's the stickiness, it's the lovely fruit, all that lovely fruit in there. And by adding water or moisture to this, you've plumped up the fruit you have, so it looks that much more special. And this, it'll be just glazed over the top. If you have a brush, great, you can brush it on. I don't have a brush. So all I'm going to do is boil it up, make it nice and smooth, and then that'll be ready for the end. Our dough's had an hour, and let's see how it's getting on. Wow, look at that. It's actually risen, it's twice the size. Here's where the fun starts. I'm going to add my fruit to this, and that's my fruit, mixed fruit, and my mixed peel to it. And that goes like so. And I'm going to knead that in. Here's another fun fact about hot cross buns. They say that if you bring a hot cross bun with you on a sea voyage, that you won't have a shipwreck. So next time you go on your cruise, girls, remember your hot cross bun. Also, if you hang a hot cross bun in the kitchen, it'll protect your kitchen against fires. Alright, so I've added my fruit to my dough. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this into 16 pieces. Cut in half again, so it's 4 out of each one. Now these won't be that big. If you want, you can cut it into 8. You can have a full big one as well. It's up to you. And each piece now I'm going to cut it into 4. Now, I've cut my buns, they're in 16. I'm just going to move those to the back. I'm going to roll out my hot cross buns. First of all though, I'm just going to put 1 tablespoonful of flour on the table. I don't need much, I just want a little bit on my hands like so. That's all. Now watch. You get this and you have to use your hand like a claw and you roll it like that, push down against the palm of your hand here, and then you shape it into a nice round ball. There you go. And you have to do that for all 16. Okay, and I'm only using a little bit of flour on the palm of my hand, like that. Now you might have to adjust these as you're putting them into the tray to allow all the buns to go in. Nowadays, there are all sorts of alternatives on hot cross buns. I hear, because I'd never eat them, that they have hot cross buns made with chocolate, with salted caramel, and this sounds nice though, doesn't it? No, couldn't. To me, hot cross buns are about tradition. You know it's Easter when you have a hot cross bun. And just in case, when you make these, and if you do have any left over, the next day, these will be fairly hard. The reason they will be hard is because we're not using any preservatives or artificial flavorings or whatever it is that you might have in the ones that you buy in the shop. Okay, there's the 16th one. They're all in. I've spaced them out fairly well. And I'm going to leave those again for another hour. And then I'll show you how to put the crosses on the top. So put them over here. I lightly cover them. Okay. To make your crosses, you get 3 heaped tablespoonfuls of plain flour. This is cake flour or cream flour or whatever, okay? It's not strong flour. You can use strong flour if you want, but I'm just using this, okay? Now I want to make a paste. So to the 3 tablespoons of flour, I'm adding about 6 tablespoonfuls of water. I want to make a paste, a fairly thick paste anyway. You could use this actually for wallpaper. Just make sure it's nice and smooth and it runs like so. Okay? Now, we'll just leave that aside for now, do a bit of a clean up, and we'll get ready for the next stage. Right, let's have a look at our buns. And as you can see, they have really doubled in size. Wow, look at those. Okay, can't wait for them to come out of the oven. Okay, I'm going to show you a little trick. One sheet you're going to use for a piping bag, and watch what I do. I fold it into a triangle like so. You see the size of it? I cut that extra side bit off. I'm going to get this now, and I'm going to make it into a piping bag. Now if you have a piping bag yourself, or even use a plastic bag, it's up to you, and you make this piping bag shape. Right, now fold that over, stop it from opening up. I'm going to cut that and twist it, and I have a piping bag of sauce. I'm sticking it here just to hold it. If you have somebody in the kitchen with you, great. You can actually get them to do that. And here is my mixture, my plain flour and water mixture. And I'm going to put that in here, like so. Now, I can need the scissors. And I'll just cut the end off here. Not too much. See the size here? Okay. And this is where the religious part comes in. We're going to make a cross on each one of these. So we start from one end, and you make sure it's quite thick. And you can see I'm letting them drop down over the edges. That's my 16th one there. Get the kids to do this for you. They'll enjoy this. Remember, it's only flour and water, so if you do run out, just make a bit more. These are all ready for the oven. The oven is set at 200 degrees C, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and gas mark 6. All right, and they'll take about 20 minutes to cook. I put those on the middle shelf, not too high, because I want them to cook all the way through, and there is quite a few on there, and I want the middle ones to be cooked as well. So the only thing we have left to do is our glaze, and that's our apricot jam and water, which is nice and liquidy now. Okay, our hot cross buns have had about 20 minutes. Let's see what they're looking like. Whoa, look at that. Lovely buns, all nicely coloured. The crosses come out well. All I have to do now is just glaze them over. I've warmed my apricot glaze up. Now, if you have a brush, great. That's lovely. It's the ideal way to do it. But if you haven't got one, you can still do it, and I'll show you. I can hopefully be able to see what I'm doing. I'm just brushing a little bit of the glaze over the top of the buns, like so. That's just to give it that lovely sticky thing. And you have the mixed spice in there as well. Again, if you run out of apricot glaze, you can boil a little bit of sugar and water together. Or marmalade, it's up to you. In England, in the Elizabethan times, it was prohibited for people to sell spiced or hot cross buns, except for funerals, Good Friday and Christmas. So during those days, the only hot cross buns you could really get, legit, were ones that were baked at home. Right, sad thing is I have to let these cool down before I taste them. Okay, I've let them cool a bit. And now I'm just going to transfer them onto a cooling rack a little bit more. And when I say let them cool down a little bit here, because I had apricot glaze on there, and the apricot glaze, it's hot sugar, and you have to mind yourself, all right? Look at those. Right, it's time to see what they taste like. I'll go for this one. Whoa. cross bun, straight out of the oven, nice and warm. The butter just melts on there, lashings of butter. Hopefully you won't be like me, you'll let them cool all the way. I'd like to see you try it. Okay. Oh, they're good. Very good. Cheers. I better go on with my Easter cupcakes now. Right, folks, we've done our horse cross buns. It's now time to do our Easter cupcakes. The Easter cupcakes are quite easy to do. You might call them fairy cakes, you might call them muffins or whatever, but we, for the purposes of this class, will call them Easter cupcakes. Right. What you'll need, equipment-wise, will be, you'll need a nice bowl. You need a couple of spoons. And the reason you have the spoons is that when you're getting the mix, you're going to have to put it into your cases that are here. And then you'll just use one to lift it up and the other one to drop it off, okay? So, 2 spoons. And that's great. If you have 2 kids, they can both lift them. You need a knife. You need a sharp knife as well. And you will also need a wooden spoon and a whisk. And finally, you'll need this, a sieve and a bowl. I won't use a weighing scale for this. You can if you want, and you will get the scales version of the recipe. But as I always say, that it's not always possible to get hold of weighing scales in the kitchen. So I have the ingredients done out in cups, and somebody's pointed out, are they cups? Well, they are to me. They're IKEA cups, they are, yeah. And we'll just go through them now. This part here is for the sponge. We've got a pack of margarine, a whole pack of margarine. It's 250 grams. And then I have 250 grams of sugar. Now you can see it's about 3/4 of the way up the cup it is, that's 3/4. And it's supposed to weigh the same as the margarine. The reason why I'm using margarine, it's softer and it'll be easier to mix in. And I also have 4 eggs. You'll notice that 3 of them are one size and the other one is a bit bigger. And the reason being, they've actually come from my garden, from the hens. The big one has, and they won't lay them to the size I need them. We have our margarine, we have our sugar, we have our 4 eggs, and we have 250 grams of flour. And you can see that about just comes up to the top. If you're a little bit out, that's fine. But you can see the difference in the weights, okay? That's because the flour is lighter and the sugar is more dense. You'll put them into these cases and you'll bake them at 180 degrees for approximately 20 minutes. I'll update the time if we need to later on. When the cupcakes are nice and cold, I'm going to take my butter and I'm going to cream it up, and I'm going to add my icing sugar to make a buttercream. And I'll use that to decorate my cupcakes. And that's why you'll need that knife for. If you have a piping bag, fair play to you, you can do a little bit of piping, that's great. Me, I'm going to do the easy way out here. I have some mini Easter eggs, and I have here 12. I haven't seen them for ages. There's only 140 calories per bar, apparently. God, that means I'll probably have 2 of them, and that's 280. And then I also have sprinkles, and the sprinkles can be anything at all. I have rose gold sprinkles that I got in Tesco's, all right? And that's it, and you can decorate them up whichever way you want. But it's an alternative to giving an Easter egg on the Sunday, because sometimes you give one, they're all the same, they are, and I know they don't cost that much, eggs nowadays, but it's a more personal thing, it is, if you give them a nice cake. And it has an Easter egg in it, it has chocolate, and it has cream in the way of buttercream and all that, so you've got everything that you would have on an Easter egg, but it's yours, you've done it yourself. Okay, let's start. I'm going to get my margarine and I'll put it in here, and using this wooden spoon I'm going to soften it. This might take a while, but I want to cream this up. Okay, now I've softened the margarine up a bit, and you can see it's a little bit softer. And I'm now going to add my caster sugar. In that goes so. And here is where you cream up the two. If I'd added the sugar beforehand, it might have made it a little bit harder. And you can see it blends in that much easier, that much quicker. And it's at this point where you're starting to struggle that you get the kids involved. Hey kids, do you want to have a go? Yeah, sure. It's lovely sugar and butter. Okay, I've creamed my butter and sugar up together, and now I'm going to add the eggs. I'll add them one at a time. Now I know some people, they go on, or you have to make sure that you add it so you don't split the mixture, and what you do if you split it. Don't worry, because once you add the flour, the whole lot will come back together again. Now you'll see that that's mixed in properly. I just add another egg, and another egg, and another egg. Just keep doing it one at a time. Make sure, by the way, that your oven's on at this point, 180 degrees. And the next one. Okay, there we go. And just add the final one. That's 4 eggs in. If you have a mixing machine, go for it. Okay, all my eggs are in and they're all mixed well. A little bit of advice. This is at the point where you've got to make sure that your oven is ready, that you have your cake tins ready, that you have your papers in your cake tins, and you're all set to go. Because once you add the flour to this mix, this is when the magic happens, because the flour is self-leavening flour, which contains cream of tartar and bicarbonate soda, baking powder, that causes the chemical reaction. As soon as you add it to your mix, it'll start to work. If you're not ready to put it into the oven, you're going to get flat ones. So my advice is never add your flour till you're all set. This is the point where you go, yeah, that's up to temperature, they're ready, that's it. You behave yourself, okay? And it's all systems go now. So I'll add half of the flour, and just get that in. And I'll add half of that's left. And then I'll add the rest. Okay. Now looking at the mix, it might be a little bit too dry. It's supposed to be what they call dropping consistency. So in other words, if you have it on your spoon and you turn it over like that, it should drop. It's not quite dropping, so I'll just get a little bit of milk. And I'm talking about a small drop of milk. Create me 2 tablespoonfuls. Just mix that in like so. And then just give it a little flick. That's just right. Okay. Put my milk back in the fridge. And we'll start filling these up. You'll notice also I have a tray underneath these. But what we'll do, if I was you, is I'd put 1 dollop in each one. Just to make sure you've got all done. And once you've got your dollop in, every single one of them, what you do is use your mix up and you go back and probably stick about another dollop in each one, approximately. Anything that's left in the bowl, get somebody to lick it out. Okay, they go into the oven and that'll be about 20 minutes. I put those in the middle shelf. I don't want the temperature to be too high on the top or too high on the bottom, so in between is just a good way of cooking. 20 minutes exactly, but looking at my cupcakes, they're not quite done yet. Now, in other circumstances, I'll be able to open the oven and close it again and not have to worry. But if the cakes are not quite done and there's still a little bit liquid in the middle and you open it, they'll just go flatten. So I'm going to give them another 4 or 5 minutes just to make sure that they are. And what I'm looking for is a nice golden brown colour on the top. And remember, there is sugar in there, so even after you take them out, they will continue to go brown. In the meantime, I'll just also show you what I've done is I've washed my bowl out and dried it, and while the bowl was hot, I added my butter. And that way, it's actually started to soften the butter already. Okay, I've had a little peek. And I think my buns are just done. Let's have a look and see. Oh. Right. You see what I mean about golden brown? And I just took the tops like so. That's nice. They're just nice. Right. I've got to let those cool down now, and the best way of cooling them down is to put them onto a cooling rack. I didn't say you need a cooling rack. If you have one, great. If not, just take them out, put them on a table and just leave them to cool. Okay, we'll let those cool down now, maybe half an hour. And in the meantime, I said we'll just soften the butter up. I just put it on top of the tray that came out of the oven, and that'll help to soften it even more. And that'll be ready to make the buttercream. That little trick that I came up with by putting the butter over the top of the empty tins as they came out of the oven has really helped to soften this butter up. And you want to get it as fluffy as you possibly can. And that's why I'm whisking it well. Want to get a little bit of air in there, because as you know, buttercream can be a little bit solid. I just want to get a bit of air in there into the butter, and then I'm going to add the icing sugar. So it's 250 grams, which is half a pack of butter. in there approximately, and it's a whole pack of icing sugar. That's a small pack of icing sugar, 500 grams. And I'm going to sieve that in so there's no lumps. That's half the pack in. I'm just going to mix that through. Now I've added the icing sugar, and I'm going to use the spoon now to mix that through. Again, if you have a machine, go for it. Now, with this butter, if you have some, you can actually add some colouring, blue or pink or whatever colour you have. And you can also add vanilla essence as well to it, give it a more creamy flavour. I'm just going to add the rest of the extra sugar. I'm just going to hold back some of the icing sugar as well, and you'll see why. I won't mix the whole lot in. Just leave that there. Okay, that's my buttercream ready. Now let me show you with the buns. If you get your nice little sharp knife and digging down at an angle towards the centre, you cut out a piece, like so, okay? And I'm going to get that and I'm going to cut it in half. I'm going to, with my other knife, just get a little bit of cream, fill that gap up. Okay. And we get these, and we put them in like so. We get one of our Easter eggs. Can you see that? Maybe two. I get a bit of the twirl bar. Did I tell you it's only 140 calories per bar? And just take a piece. Put that in like so. There we are. Do another one. I said, point the knife down towards the centre, so you get a nice big chunk out like that. Get a bit of buttercream. Stick that in like so. This one I'll do slightly different. Put some of the 100,000s on. Maybe even a few here as well. The kids love these. They'll be going around eating them all. Right, I'm going to finish these off and I'll take a photograph of the finished ones. And I tell you what, if you want, I think you might have my WhatsApp number. If you want to send me a photograph of what your finished items look like, and of course the hot cross buns, that'd be great, and I'll make some comments and tell you how they are. Listen folks, I hope you enjoy your hot cross buns and you enjoy your Easter cupcakes. Oh, just finish them off, a little bit of icing sugar over the top. Look at that. Shall I? No. Try to look after my figure. I think I'm about 40 years too late. Take care, all the best.